And her voice definitely conveys that she is either from somewhere in the UK or perhaps Australia or New Zealand, as I'm picking up an accent, a clearly an English speaking accent. Um, but it doesn't sound like they're
But
from.
that rules out America.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you've done there. Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. It's Andy, it's John, and of course, it's an episode devoted to a track. And in this case, it's a track offered up by John to me. I will go off and give it a listen and come back and have John tell me more after, of course, telling him my thoughts on the experience. So, John, first of all, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, fairly middling.
My man. Always fair to middling. I'm glad things haven't changed.
Yeah.
What have you have up your sleeve for today's episode, my friend?
So the artist is Courtney Barnett.
No bells have been rung, but okay, Courtney Barnett.
Okay. And the track is Pedestrian at best.
Pedestrian at best. Okay. Um, Interesting. All right, yeah. Let me go off, check out this tune, and I will let you know exactly what I've made of it.
I love you, I hate you, I'm on the fence, it all depends whether I'm up, I'm down, I'm on the mend, transcending all reality. I like you, despise you, admire you, what are we gonna
This is already fun right out of the gate musically because it's akin to all the stuff from the 90s. You've got like a hint of grunge. You've certainly got 90s alt rock happening in this sound, and this sort of disassociated kind of slacker delivery by Miss Barnett, which is interesting and familiar, which I guess is my main point in that it sounds, as a child of the 90s, this is sort of what I came up listening to. So it's like, I mean, it sounds a bit more modern, but what it's hearkening to is something that I'm very familiar with and thus kind of feels like home. Um, some interesting biting lyrics like "I love you, I hate you, I'm on the fence, it all depends." It sounds like an interesting dynamic in whatever relationship she's kind of illustrating, and she would go on to make some more pointed, dare I say, sarcastic sounding lyrics thereafter. Let's just pull that back because I mean, after that bit of like transistory like sound for just a couple seconds, we were kind of like off to the races. So let's relive that again.
I love you, I hate you, I'm on the fence, it all depends whether I'm up, I'm down, I'm on the mend, transcending all reality. I like you, despise you, admire you, what are we gonna do when everything all falls through? I must confess I've made a mess of what should be a small success, but I digress, at least I've tried my very best, I guess.
Okay, so now that line about talking about what should have been a small success has become a mess or something like that. This sounds like a relationship maybe between her and the press or her fan base, perhaps. It's just, it seems that she's grappling with her seemingly accidental newfound fame, and she's trying to digest those feelings because I'm sure, like a lot of the, I mean, I think one of the biggest examples that, at least for my generation, that comes to my mind is Cobain and how he grappled with becoming what he hated. maybe not personally, but the way he was looked at or viewed was on a level of celebrity that he wanted nothing to do with. And I think ultimately, given all of his pre-existing issues, it only compounded his sort of psychological fragility in that aspect. That's not saying that that's wholly true of who he is or how he's made up. I think he was actually very strong in a lot of ways, but this was a vulnerability of his. It sounds like perhaps she's maybe handling it a bit better, I would say. But I think it's a similar sentiment, right? Like, you don't want to become the celebrity, junk that you probably came up despising to some degree.
This, that, the other, why even bother? It won't be with me on my deathbed, but I'll still be in your head. Put me on a pedestal and I'll only disappoint you. Tell me I'm exceptional, I promise to exploit you. Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey.
It's a great line.
I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny.
I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny. That's a particularly scathing line too that I enjoyed. She said, "Give me all your money and I'll make you origami, honey," or something to that effect. There is, I think she's underscoring pretty obviously the transactional nature of the entertainer and their audience, and there's also this idea of like, if you treat me like a whore, I'll treat you like a trick. If that's the nature, if that's how you want this dynamic to be, it doesn't have to be one-sided where you just get to kind of like paint me as one way or treat me like shit and I'm not going to retaliate. If you're going to treat me like a loathsome, prostitute, then I'm going to treat you like a loathsome, lonely person that can only rely on transactional relationships to coexist with others or to even have any form of social interaction. Yeah, she's not fucking around, this one. I'm here for it. I mean, the music is great. We went from sort of a loud, instead of loud quiet, which we often talk about with alt rock, a la the Pixies and all those who came after. This starts out with fairly loud to even louder, which is matching the venom with which she sings. I use that term loosely, but I still love her delivery in this.
My internal monologue is saturated analog. It's scratched and drifting. I've become attached to the idea. It's all a shifting dream, bittersweet philosophy. I've got no idea how I even got here. I'm resentful. I'm having an existential time crisis. What bliss? Daylight savings won't fix this mess. Underworked and oversexed. I must express my disinterest. The rats are back inside my head. What would Freud have said? Put me on a pedestal and I'll only disappoint you.
I like that
Tell me
guitar.
I'm exceptional, I promise to exploit you. Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey. I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny.
I like the flat vocalizing.
I wanna wash out my head with turpentine cyanide. I dislike this internal diatribe when I try to catch your eye. I hate seeing you crying in the kitchen. I don't know why it affects me like this when you're not even mine to
Guitar's affecting
consider.
my backseat.
Erroneous, harmonious, I'm hardly sanctimonious. Dirty clothes, I suppose we all outgrow ourselves. I'm a fake, I'm a phony, I'm awake, I'm alone, I'm homely, I'm a Scorpio. Put me on a pedestal and I'll only disappoint you. Tell me I'm exceptional, I promise to exploit you.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. There wasn't for what it lacked in musical diversity, which not every song needs to have, different moving parts bursting at the seams musically. It's totally fine. But for what it lacked, it made up for in like all of these like fork-tongued observations and this kind of brazen wit because she's cutting at the people that put her on the pedestal that she refers to. I get again. I echo my sentiments earlier. Probably the music press, and to some degree her fans out there, and you gotta be kind of brave to just like go at the knees of the people that are propping you up. But I don't think this is a woman who gives a shit about being propped up, and there is something to be said about there being there's nothing more dangerous than a man who has nothing left to lose. And to a degree, that kind of translates to this situation, although we are clearly talking about a very strong woman in this case. But I don't think she gives a flying fuck. I really don't. This is just one listen. Maybe the other tracks on this same exact album fawn over her fans in the music press. I doubt it. But just from this one listen, yeah, she doesn't seem to take herself too seriously, and I don't think she wants us to either, which I honestly respect the shit out of. I have far more. That's yes, it's a there's to some degree a conflict of interest because she wants to be a musician. Musicians inherently will seek or through accident find the limelight, but you can't be a musician and not expect that that's going to be possibly, if you're lucky or unlucky, depending on who you ask, uh, to find that limelight. You might not go running into it, but it will find you out like like the light on the tower of a jailhouse looking for an escaped convict trying to spot you out. It'll get you if you're making what people want. Um, but I think she's trying to draw a line in the sand saying, give me my space. And I am only but a person. Don't take me so seriously. I respect that a lot. And although, like I mentioned earlier, it may have not had the musical diversity of Can or Radiohead or some of the other bands that we've talked about on this channel that John and I are both fans of. It was rooted in this sound that will forever be good in my estimation. This '90s slacker alt semi grunge kind of sound, and it was all packaged up with a really interesting, clever, witty message that I found wholly entertaining. So I don't know much about her. She sounds like she's either we've run into this lately. She's either like maybe British or from Australia or New Zealand. I sensed a bit of an accent there. It didn't sound like it was from my motherland, but hey, I could be wrong. But that is one of myriad questions I have for John. So let's get back to him and discuss this young lady further.
Go to the back of our stairs. He's back. So you've had to listen to Courtney Barnett, Pedestrian at best. What do you think?
Uh, well, this was an interesting listen and a funny, pointed one as well. So things begin with a bit of this like buzzed out kind of frictious noise akin to like a transistor radio having its dial turned quickly. We've heard that before in other songs. I think we're both kind of suckers for it. So of course it went over well in this case too. And then we get a strike of the drum, ushering in this very '90s-esque beat. And it is accompanied by this chunky guitar riffage, which also smacks of a certain time during my coming of age. So yeah, this was yeah.
So I would say this right now, just in case it does ring any bells. The reason I gave you this song is because in an episode recently, I said, "Oh, the riff on this song sounds like a slower or faster version of Courtney Barnett's Pedestrian at Best." And you went, "Really? Never heard of them?" And I said, "Oh, I'll give you that." And you know what? I can't remember which bloody song it was.
Well, that's one step better than me because I just now remember you making that reference and
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
artist. Of course, I remember the reference, but I didn't know that it was Courtney Barnett in this song.
yeah,
And now I'm racking my brain, going, which recent
exactly.
song I gave you?
So what I'll do is we'll just put in here the little ticker tape below us. They're going, the dumbasses have now remembered, and it's this episode. Check it out.
That's great. Well, to be fair, that's an interesting tidbit that I'm sure we'll connect the dots on. But absent of that, it didn't stop my enjoyment of this
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
track.
yeah.
Yeah, and there is so she joins her vocals join shortly thereafter. This thing kind of like after that intro kind of hits the ground running basically
Yeah.
all the way through. So it has this kind of 90s slightly disassociated slacker rock sound to her delivery, which again coupled with all these other early mid 90s sounds is just kind of feeling like home to me. And obviously with that comes this air of familiarity, even though I've never heard the song before. And her voice definitely conveys that she is either from somewhere in the UK or perhaps Australia or New Zealand, as I'm picking up an accent, clearly an English speaking accent. Um, but it doesn't sound like they're
So
from.
that rules out America.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you've done there. I'm amazed you can understand me. We're on like hundreds of episodes now, and we've somehow made it through this communication barrier. So her opening lines have this comedic sarcasm about them as she sings, "I love you, I hate you, I'm on the fence, it all depends," um, which sounds inherently kind of like transactional. Like if it's all what dependent upon what is then the question, right? Um, so she adds a line or two later. I like you, despise you, admire you, which is a bit all over the map, just like the aforementioned set of lyrics. And it only adds to this interesting and seemingly complex relationship that she's illustrating right out of the gate. Um, she then drops the line about having made a mess of what should have been a small success. And I'm beginning to think this relationship she is talking about is between her and either or both the sort of music press, as well as her own fan base, or at least a percentage of that fan base. So you speak of the 90s. I'm reminded of the 90s now. I can't shake the 90s. I'm instantly thinking about other popular artists who, particularly during that movement, were riddled with these personas who grappled with their own success and kind of hated who they had become, whether, kind of by accident or even trying to avoid, still ended up there. Cobain is the number one person that comes to mind. No one hated who they became more than Kurt Cobain. It was part of his downfall, and probably along with his addiction issues were his biggest part of his biggest psychological weakness was this grappling with self situation, and the fame that came with Nirvana. So, go ahead.
I would add a little bit later, but I think another person who went through that same turmoil, but in a different kind of way, was old Marshall Mathers, Eminem,
Yeah,
same thing. That
I could
particularly that
absolutely see
high,
it.
and then back
Yeah.
down again, and then up again.
Yeah.
Very a different. He took a different path,
Mhm.
sort of
Yeah, yeah, and
napalm with his own relationships. But
yeah, and
fuck
you
you
could
to
argue.
me.
I don't know much about her, but you could argue that Miss Barnett here is compartmentalize digesting it in a different way that Cobain did, and even Marshall Mathers, where it's this is only this is only one track. I know nothing of the woman, but this seems to be while still sardonic and a little dark, it's a more healthy way than perhaps some of the others that we've underscored here. But yeah, it's all but confirmed by the time the chorus drops after that high-pitched shot of feedback as she delivers the opening line, "Put me on a pedestal and I'll only disappoint you," which is, I don't think she's talking about her boyfriend here. You know what I mean? Or her significant other. The drums ramp up a bit during the chorus as well, which only adds to the increased fervor of this portion of the song. And rather than going the route that we often talk about and attribute to the folks on your t-shirt, we don't go quiet loud. We go loud louder in this one. Yeah, which is still a mechanism akin to that, or perhaps derived from it. So it all boils down to the folks on your shirt, but nonetheless, this isn't as jolting as it is when you
Yeah.
hear that arpeggioed quiet verse, that
Yeah.
couple drums, bah, and then you're hit. You know what I mean? This, it's out of the gate, no loop. We're just say fast. So, interesting, juxtaposition, how you're listening to the verse and you're like, all right, how's this going to get heavier? And then, oh, lo and behold, they do in fact get heavier. The drums really ramp up. That feedback sort of lets you know it's coming. So then comes a couple of interesting lines, the second of which is particularly scathing. "Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey," which just makes me laugh, It's, you could take that two ways. It's like, give me your money and I'll literally turn it into a goddamn flamingo or whatever, or a crane. But it also is like, fuck it, I'll give me your money, I'll do whatever you want. You know what I mean? If this is how you want the relationship to be, purely transactional, I'll play the part. If you want me to be the whore, I'll treat you like the trick. And that is, I think that's a really biting kind of, I like that. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, if you're going to put me down here, it's the opposite of pedestal. If you're going to put me down here, I will bring you down to my level and we will have that kind of relationship if that's what you seek. That's empowering. That's bold. That's ballsy, and I like it a lot. So, and then she says, she follows with the lyric, "I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny." And this is the more directly scathing line, I think, because there's no real reading into this. It's like, you're funny, but not like funny, haha. Like, we're laughing at you, not with you. And yeah, that can cut pretty deep, and also her this elongated delivery, albeit very flatly, of the word funny is entertaining in its own right. So that gave me another chuckle on top of just the lyrical content being great, and all this funny word usage that she's deploying. We jump back into the main motif of the song, and so we are now firmly off to the races in the second verse. And there isn't much going on here musically that diverges from what the first verse had to offer. She does stay on message, though, as her bitingly sarcastic and almost deadpan lyrics continue to unfurl with lines like, "I've got no idea how I even got here. I'm resentful. I'm having an existential time crisis. What bliss. Daylight savings won't fix this mess." I loved that little, stanza of lines there. And at one point, she ponders what Freud would have to say about her predicament. You're in a psychological, fucking chokehold when you're thinking, God damn, what would Freud take on this whole situation? That's how much you recognize you yourself are in a bit of a pickle. So that's hilarious. We get treated to another chorus and then another verse, and I think in this verse the guitar pulls back a little bit. You still hear it echoing and
Yeah.
doing something in the background, but it's not chugging that main riff that we were accustomed to. So I did like that little change of pace. Um, and it comes with more humorous observations, as these verses are, ripe with. She said, "I want to wash out my head with turpentine and cyanide." Yikes. "I dislike this internal diatribe, and when I try to catch your eye." Yeah, I'm more clever, and just the way the rhyming scheme and assonance all kind of bounce off of each other is very rhythmic in the way she uses them. So I really think, though, at this point she missed her calling as an author of Hallmark holiday greeting cards. It's a real missed opportunity, that if she's this much of a wordsmith and her sentiments are so sweet. She then signs off the last verse with a little self-deprecation by calling herself a fake, a phony, homely, and worst of all, a Scorpio. Um, this is interesting because it's the first time I think she's really recognized that she plays a part in this. And it's the last line of these verses that have been used at this point to very, cleverly needle at everyone else. And then she brings it home by kind of, what's the adage, one finger pointed at somebody or several fingers pointed back at yourself. That's kind of how she signs off on the song from a verse standpoint, which I think is, as I will say, she's very self-aware, this one. And that is also hugely commendable. Which is something that outside of that little pocket of the 90s was less common. Not to say that it doesn't exist in other genres or anything or any other timetable, but for the peak of popular music, and this kind of style being what became popular music, the stars were filled with self-aware, in some cases self-loathing individuals, as we've outlined. So again, it's kind of this return to form that I think is refreshing and kind of needed in a world of Taylor Swifts and Biebers and, all these cardboard cutouts that represent what popular music is supposed to be. It's good to get human fragility with a microphone or a megaphone in front of it. So I like that a lot. So we then get treated to back-to-back choruses that then segue into the opening riff, chunky as it was in the first and second verse. And a couple reps of that before the song abruptly comes to its conclusion. So yeah, while the song didn't offer anything up in like the way of musical diversity or exploration, like let's say some of like Can or Radiohead, I think I mentioned, somewhat a band's akin to that. It still is wonderful in that it has this raw attitude, these fork-tongued observations, and this sense of swashbuckling wit. And by that I mean it's brave and brazen and in your face. And yeah, it landed her in a spot where she can sing about this fame has, which is, a clever way to use your fame, if you ask me. And there's something seriously commendable and self-aware in that, which is refreshing to see and hear from an artist these days. She doesn't seem to take herself too seriously, and I don't think she wants us to either. I respect that. So yeah, was this the best song I've ever heard? No. But was it really clever and made me crack a smile and made me think? And did it give me hope a little bit in that there can still be musicians who kind of have this going for them? Yeah, it did. It checked a lot of those boxes. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's got a lot of sort of charm to it. You warm to her, even though what she's singing is fairly dreadful at points.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, it's great, and it's just full of oomph as well. So I do like it a lot. So I'll tell you a bit about her. Courtney Melba Barnett, named after the peach dessert. I don't think so. She is an Australian singer, songwriter, and musician, and she is known for her deadpan singing style and witty, rambling lyrics.
Oh,
Her work has been described as indie rock, alternative rock, slacker rock, and doll wave, which is a new one on me. It's an Australian music genre that emerged in the early 2010s, 2010s, initially used online as an in-joke to describe an indie scene in Melbourne. The term has since been applied by music critics to a wider range of Australian acts that share a DIY ethic and a peculiarly and recognisably Australasian sound, such as Courtney Barnett and Rolling Blackout's Coastal Fever. Common influences for this doll wave include 1980s jangle pop of Australian bands such as the Go-Betweens, and also the lo-fi Dunedin sound of New Zealand's Flying Nun record label that we've covered with a few bands. So I thought it was really cool. And obviously they're taking the word doll from the English, which means, unemployment benefit. So again, yeah. Really cool. So, yes, from 2010 to 2011, Barnett played second guitar in Melbourne's grunge band called Rapid Transit, And then between 2011 and 2013, she was a member of Australian psych country band Immigrant Union. Can you imagine? Sharing vocal duties and playing slide guitar. Psych
Interesting.
country.
Well,
Yeah,
what's cool about this is like this is it sounds like again one song, but it sounds like in her current iteration, this her just her playing under her own name, she's picking some of the sounds from the previous bands to inject into this new sound that she's created for herself, or the sound that she's now making that now makes up what she's doing, which is cool because I've definitely caught some of what you just mentioned in this one listen.
yeah, definitely. So she used the money that she borrowed from her grandmother to start her own record label called Milk Records, and she would then self-released her first EP called "I've Got a Friend Called Emily Ferris" in 2012. Following that release, Barnett signed to Marathon Artists, who released the double EP, "A Sea of Split Peas," and then combined it with the first EP, so there's two for one. And the second EP was actually called "How to Carve a Carrot into a Rose." This brought her international critical acclaim, with Avant Gardener, the lead single, being named Track of the Day by Q Magazine and Best New Track by Pitchfork in 2013. So then she set about making her debut album, Sometimes I Sit and Think, and Sometimes I Just Sit, which is that one there. And it was released in 2015 to widespread acclaim. I will say off this album, it is a good, really good album. This is like the heaviest, most, gutsy song on there. There's different styles. The ones that are almost sort of lackadaisical, bluesy. Yeah, it was really nice. Some that are country tinged a little bit. Really interesting song. So, just for this album, the personnel: Courtney Barnett, guitar, vocals; Dave Muddy, drums, percussion, vocals; Bones Sloan, great name, bass and vocals; and Dan Luscombe, guitar vocals. So Barnett spent a year writing the songs for this album, but only showed them to her band a week before they recorded, in order to capture a fresh sound. The song "Pedestrian at Best," which you just listened to, was written in quotes at the last minute, and the recorded version that you heard was the first time that Barnett sung the words out loud. Yeah.
It's incredible.
The album was largely recorded over 8 days in Melbourne in April 2014. In the liner notes, which are quite funny, Barnett reveals that the album's title was inspired by a poster that hung in her grandmother's bathroom. Obviously, she borrowed the money from. Metacritic, the album received an average weighted score of 88. So,
Wow.
AllMusic called it invigorating, saying that it provided a convincing argument that rock and roll doesn't need reinvention in order to revive itself. DIY magazine called the record exceptional and said, "Make no mistake, this is a debut like few others." The Guardian wrote that the album improves upon each listen because it's been a while since Western rock music, let alone Melbourne's fiercely insular and often too precious indie scene, has thrown up a songwriter and lyricist as intriguing, compelling, and down-to-earth, yet surreal and morbidly funny as Barnett. Rolling Stone ranked Pedestrian at Best at number 4 on its annual year-end list to find the best songs of 2015. The album reached number 4 in the Australian album charts, number 16 in the UK, and number 20 in the US Billboard 200. I think that's quite outstanding to get that far up as a debut album, and unheard of in the US Billboard charts.
Yeah.
The main charts. It reached number 1 in the US folk charts, number 1 in the US independent charts, number 1 in the US alternative charts, number 1 in the US top rock charts, and number 1 in the US vinyl album charts. So it did all right.
Yeah.
The 2015 ARIA Awards, which are the Australian, sort of Grammys or Brit Awards, whatever.
Yeah.
She won 4 awards from 8 nominations. So she won for Best Breakthrough Artist, Best Female Artist, Best Independent Release, and Best Cover Art. That was drawn by her. I think that's quite cool. She was also nominated for Best New Artist at the 58th Annual Grammy Awards, and International Female Solo Artist at the 2016 Brit Awards.
It's nice to know that not only would she be great at writing greeting cards, but she could also illustrate them as well, should she ever want to go that route.
And she also was the winner of the 2015 Australian Music Prize Award, which is given for the best Australian album release of the year. And at the J Awards that we've spoken about before, the album won Australian Album of the Year as well. So, you know, tick, 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 tick.
Killed it.
So, go to the lyrics. I should try and scan them. It's a lot. I love you, I hate you, I'm on the fence, it all depends. Whether I'm up, I'm down, I'm on the mend, transcending all reality. I like you, despise you, admire you. What are we going to do when everything all falls through? I must confess I've made a mess of what should be a small success. But I digress, at least I tried my very best, I guess. This, that, the other, why even bother? It won't be me on my deathbed, but I'll still be in your head. Put me on a pedestal, I'll only disappoint you. Tell me I'm exceptional, I promise to exploit you. Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey. I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny. My internal monologue is saturated analog. It's scratching and drifting. I've become attached to the idea. It's all shifting. Dream, bittersweet philosophy. I've got no idea how I even got here. I'm resentful. I'm having an existential time crisis. What bliss. Daylight savings won't fix this mess. Underworked and oversexed, I must express my disinterest. The rats are back inside my head. What would Freud have said? Put me on a pedestal, I don't disappoint you. Tell me I'm exceptional, I promise to exploit you. Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey. I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny. I want to wash out my hair with turpentine and cyanide. I dislike this internal diatribe when I try to catch your eye. I hate seeing you crying in the kitchen. I don't know why it affects me like this when you're not even mine to consider. Erroneous, harmonious, I'm hardly sanctimonious. Dirty clothes, I suppose. We all outgrow ourselves. I'm a fake, I'm a phony, I'm awake, I'm alone, I'm homely. I'm a Scorpio. Put me on a pedestal and I only disappoint you. Tell me I'm exceptional and I promise to exploit you. Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey. I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny. Put me on a pedestal and I only disappoint you. Tell me I'm exceptional, I promise to exploit you. Give me all your money and I'll make some origami, honey. I think you're a joke, but I don't find you very funny. Yeah, so apparently this song is actually about her celebrity, famous persona. So you're very, very close to what you're saying, but it's actually directed at the idea of her as a famous artist.
Okay.
I think it's transactional between, you know, her as a real person or a creative person, and then this monster that will create money, you know, and all that.
Yeah.
So it's just it's another way of trying to keep grounded and or a conflict between being real and being, you know, as you say, there's some sort of whore that's cashing in the money, which is exactly what Cobain went through himself, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that links in perfectly. So yeah, I just think it's really funny, and I do like the way the sort of rising nature of the verses. It almost feels like you're teetering a bit, and then it crashes in terms of the chorus, and I do like that that sort of technique. It just sounds great. I think a lot of the sort of acclaim she got as well is all bad timing. So 2015, there wasn't a lot of this sounding music around. So she bursts on the scene. It's like, oh, this is back. Oh, great. You know, okay, we've seen it all before in cycles. Anyway, following this, in 2017, Barnett and Kurt Vile recorded the collaborative album, Lotta Sea Lice. Her second solo album, Tell Me How You Really Feel, was released in 2018, again to widespread acclaim, a Metacritic rating of 80, and has been compared in style to, wait for it, Nirvana, Hole, Pavement, and Liz Phair. There you go, tick, tick, tick.
All of that makes sense, yeah.
Her third album, Things Take Time, recorded during the pandemic, came out in 2021. That was okay received, you know, still decent. But in 2024, she announced that Milk Records would be de-established, as it folded at the end of the year. The final release was an instrumental album by Barnett called End of the Day, and it was originally composed as a film score for a 2021 documentary about Barnett called Anonymous Club. So that's a cool way of winding off that sort of part of her life. And she's still obviously writing, performing, and hopefully she'll bring up some new stuff soon. But yeah, that's Miss Barnett.
Very interesting person. Very interesting story that you summed up there for me. So that documentary that was supposed to be released about her in 2021 or whatever, did it never get, or did it get
I think
released?
it is around. Yeah.
Okay. So
Well,
they
I think
just of instrumentals that she had created for it. Okay, I wasn't sure if that meant it
I
didn't
think
come
she
out.
then reworked it into as an album to then
Okay,
release. I've not heard it, but it seems to be fairly decent from the bits I've read about it. Well
yeah,
received. Yeah, and I don't know the documentary. I was thinking, oh, has that ever been released? But they did say somewhere that you could get hold of it. So it must. I think it had some sort of limited release, but of course, 2021 is not a great time to be making documentaries, really, whether they're
yeah.
all being locked up or whatever coming out.
Well, actually, I mean, if it's streaming, that's great because what do we have better to do? I mean, that's why we know who the fuck the Tiger King is and all this other superfluous
Yeah,
bullshit that came out around at the same time.
but it was already made before we all
Yeah,
decided to stay in our homes for several months.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing that's one of the hurdles that in terms of they did come out. So yeah, she's a really interesting character.
Sounds like it.
You're seeing that she's quite a diminutive figure, um, but she seems like a real bundle of fun energy, and sort of the footage I've seen of her performing live looks great as well. And the band seems, that for this sort of era that I've watched, seems really tight. So I was considering giving you a live version, but it's not. It's quite raw, her live performance, which is what you'd imagine. It's not highly polished. It's
Yeah.
just, which is, I guess, what you want from music like this.
Yeah, exactly. Of all the genres that I heard coming through, all of what you just said makes perfect sense because those genres, when performed live, a lot of the artists would go the same route, raw,
Yeah, exactly.
dirtier.
Exactly. Cool. All right, I should wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this, Andy.
Thank you.
Folks out there, tell us what you'll think. If you like this, please do hit the like button and drop some comments. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think of Courtney Barnett, this album, this track? Yep, let us know. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. We really appreciate everyone who does support the channel, and we're growing onwards and upwards, inch by inch, day by day. It's getting better all the time. That's it. Thanks again so much for watching, and we'll see all of you in the next episode of The Audiophiles.
We'll see you later, guys.